It's New Year's Eve, and you're surrounded by people who shine with a hope you cannot feel. They speak of dreams for the coming year with sparkling eyes, plan resolutions with contagious energy that seems to come from some deep and inexplicable place. And you're there, smiling politely, nodding when someone asks about your plans, forcing enthusiasm into your voice when you say you're excited too. But inside, you feel as if you're wearing a mask that weighs tons, as if every optimistic word that leaves your mouth is a lie that echoes in the emptiness of your chest. You look around and realize you're alone in your melancholy, isolated in a world that seems to have agreed to pretend everything will magically get better when the calendar turns. Franz Kafka captured this feeling with surgical precision when he observed that the new year demands hope and punishes those who cannot pretend. This isn't just an observation about dates on a calendar. It's a painful diagnosis of how our society treats those who cannot adapt to the collective rituals of forced optimism. If you're feeling this weight of others' expectations on your shoulders, if you're tired of pretending a joy you don't feel, you are not alone in this profoundly human experience, and more importantly, you are not wrong for feeling this way. If you've made it this far, it's because you recognize in yourself this silent struggle between the authenticity of your feelings and the expectations of the world around you. This is a space where we don't need to pretend, where we can explore together the depths of human experience without judgments or pressures to feel what we don't feel. By subscribing to this channel, you're choosing to follow a journey of genuine understanding about the most complex aspects of our existence. Here you'll find reflections that honor your inner truth, that recognize melancholy and the difficulty of feeling hope are not defects to be corrected, but legitimate aspects of human experience that deserve to be understood and embraced. Each video is an invitation to look more deeply within yourself, to find meaning even in the most challenging moments. If this resonates with you, click subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if this content touches something real in your experience, leave a like so we can build together a community where authenticity is valued above social performance. Modern society has created an emotional calendar where certain dates demand specific feelings, as if our souls were obligated to synchronize with the hands of a collective clock. New Year's has become the apex of this temporal tyranny, a moment when we are summoned to participate in a renewal ritual that assumes we all share the same capacity for spiritual regeneration. But Kafka knew, with the sharp intuition of someone who observed closely the absurd mechanisms of human existence, that this demand for hope is not a gentle invitation, it's an ultimatum disguised as celebration. Those who cannot access this hope on demand find themselves in a quintessentially Kafkaesque position, trapped in a system that punishes emotional honesty and rewards performance. Imagine a man walking through city streets on the night of December 31st. Around him, windows illuminate with the golden light of celebrations, laughter echoes through walls, fireworks paint the sky with colorful promises of a better future. He observes all this as if he were on the wrong side of an aquarium, watching life happen through a transparent but impassable barrier. It's not that he wishes others ill. It's not that he's incapable of joy in other contexts. It's that in this specific moment, on this arbitrary date that humanity has decided to load with meaning, he cannot access that source of optimism that seems to flow naturally from others. And so he finds himself facing an impossible choice: lie to himself and to others, pretending a hope he doesn't feel, or accept the isolation that comes with honesty. This is the punishment Kafka referred to, not an official or legal punishment, but something much more subtle and perhaps more cruel, the social exclusion that happens when we cannot participate in the expected emotional rituals. It's as if there exists an invisible police force of hope patrolling our hearts and issuing silent fines to those who cannot pay the required tribute of optimism. And the fine doesn't come in the form of a financial penalty, but in the form of worried looks, unsolicited advice, gentle but persistent suggestions that perhaps we should try to see the positive side, or focus on what we have to be grateful for. Hope, when it becomes a social obligation, ceases to be hope and transforms into a form of emotional violence. Because true hope cannot be forced or manufactured, it emerges organically from the depths of our experience when it finds fertile ground in our soul. When we try to cultivate it artificially, when we treat it as a commodity that can be produced on demand, we create a falsified version that serves only to distance us further from our authenticity. It's like trying to force a flower to bloom in winter, ignoring the natural cycles that govern its growth. The result is not a flower, but an imitation that quickly withers under the weight of its own artificiality. Kafka understood this paradox deeply because he lived his entire life navigating between his inner truth and the expectations of the external world. He knew what it meant to wake up every day feeling like a stranger in his own existence, unable to fully participate in the social rituals that gave meaning to others' lives. His writings are populated by characters who find themselves in similar situations, trapped in incomprehensible bureaucratic systems, transformed into creatures they don't recognize, judged by laws they can never fully understand. These are not just literary exercises of imagination. They are precise mappings of the experience of living in a world that operates according to logics that frequently contradict our interior experience. The transformation in The Metamorphosis can be read as a perfect metaphor for what happens when we can no longer pretend to fit social expectations. Gregor Samsa wakes up one day, transformed into an insect, and the family, initially shocked, gradually adapts to the new reality, but always treating the transformation as a problem to be managed, never as an experience to be understood. Similarly, when we cannot access the hope required by New Year's, when our melancholy becomes too visible to be ignored, we become a kind of social inconvenience, something that needs to be corrected or, at worst, avoided. And you, have you felt this suffocating weight of not being able to feel what everyone else seems to feel so naturally? Have you caught yourself smiling automatically when someone talks excitedly about the coming year, while inside a voice whispers that you cannot share this optimism? If you're living this experience now, leave in the comments, "I also feel this weight." You don't need to explain more. You don't need to justify or elaborate. Just leave these words as a small beacon for other people who may be navigating the same darkness. Your honesty might be exactly the validation someone needs to realize they're not alone in this silent struggle. But there is something profoundly liberating in recognizing this dynamic, in naming this pressure we feel. When we understand that difficulty in feeling hope is not a personal failure, but a natural response to a world that often seems hostile to our deepest sensitivity, we begin to recover some of our existential dignity. We are not broken because we cannot get excited about fireworks or because New Year's resolutions sound empty to us. We are perhaps simply more attuned to the real complexities of human existence, less willing to accept simple solutions to complex problems. The melancholy we feel may actually be a form of disguised wisdom. It's the recognition that life does not organize itself according to the calendars we create, that the problems we carry will not magically disappear at midnight on December 31st. It's the perception that true transformation happens in slower and deeper rhythms, which rarely coincide with the dates society has chosen to celebrate new beginnings. This melancholy is not clinical depression, although it may sometimes resemble it. It's an intellectual and emotional response to the perception that there exists a fundamental discrepancy between how we are encouraged to feel and how we actually feel. The isolation we experience when we cannot participate in these collective rituals of optimism has a particular quality, different from other forms of loneliness. It's the isolation of one who sees through illusions that others still find comforting. It's like being at a party where everyone is laughing at a joke you cannot understand, not because you're less intelligent, but because your perception captures nuances that make humor impossible. It's not that we are superior to others, it's that our sensitivity is calibrated differently, picking up frequencies of sadness and complexity that others manage to filter more easily. Kafka wrote about characters who live in worlds where the rules have changed without warning, where systems that once made sense have become incomprehensible and threatening. Joseph K. in the trial is arrested for a crime that is never made clear what it is. Judged by a court he can never fully locate, defending himself against accusations that are never clearly articulated. This is not just an absurdist fantasy, it's a precise description of what it's like to live in a society that demands hope, as if it were a tax we must pay to keep our emotional citizenship in good standing. The absurdity of the situation reveals itself when we realize that the very demand for hope makes it impossible. It's like trying to fall asleep on command, or falling in love following a schedule. The more we strive to produce the required feeling, the further it moves away from us. Genuine hope emerges from honest recognition of our present situation, not from denial of it. When we pretend optimism, when we force smiles and enthusiasm we don't feel, we are actually moving away from the possibility of real hope because we are building our emotional life on a foundation of falseness. The punishment for this honesty comes from multiple directions. There is self-punishment, the guilt we feel for not being able to be like others, for not being able to embrace the joy that seems so accessible to them. There is social punishment, subtle but constant, in the form of gradual exclusion from social circles that value positivity above authenticity. And there is existential punishment, the feeling that perhaps we are missing something fundamental about human experience, that perhaps our inability to feel hope makes us somehow less human. But Kafka, in his melancholic wisdom, offers us a different perspective. His characters, even trapped in impossible situations, even facing incomprehensible and hostile systems, maintain a fundamental dignity. They do not surrender completely, do not give up seeking understanding, even when this search seems futile. Kay continues trying to understand the castle. Gregor Samsa still worries about his family even after the transformation. Joseph K. continues seeking justice even when the judicial system reveals itself to be a labyrinth without exit. There is, in this apparently useless persistence, a form of heroism that is totally different from traditional heroism. Kafkaesque heroism is not about defeating the system or finding definitive solutions. It's about maintaining personal dignity even when confronted with the absurd, about continuing to be honest with oneself, even when this honesty is punished. Applied to our situation with New Year's and the demand for hope, this heroism manifests in our refusal to pretend feelings we don't have, in our willingness to endure the social discomfort that comes with authenticity, in our determination to find our own path, even when this path doesn't coincide with the routes society has mapped for us. There is a strange beauty in recognizing that we are not obligated to feel hope just because the calendar has changed, that our melancholy has its own value, that our difficulty in embracing easy optimism may be a sign of emotional depth, not deficiency. When we stop trying to force ourselves to feel what we don't feel, when we stop punishing ourselves for our emotional honesty, we create space for more authentic feelings to emerge in their own time and in their own way. True hope, when it finally comes, doesn't arrive accompanied by fanfare or fireworks. It appears silently, like an almost imperceptible change in the quality of light, like a small alteration in our breathing that makes us realize something has changed inside. It's not a hope that shouts its promises to the world, but one that whispers possibilities only we can hear. It's a hope that grows from honest recognition of where we are now, not from denial of our present situation. When we let go of the pressure to feel hope and simply allow ourselves to be where we are emotionally, something interesting happens. The tension between our inner truth and external expectations begins to diminish, not because the expectations have disappeared, but because we stop internalizing them as personal obligations. We begin to understand that we are not responsible for making other people feel comfortable with our melancholy, just as they are not responsible for our happiness. This understanding doesn't solve all problems, doesn't eliminate the loneliness we sometimes feel for being out of sync with collective emotional rhythms, but it changes our relationship with this loneliness, transforming it from something we fight against into something we can inhabit with dignity. We begin to see our sensitivity not as a burden, but as a particular way of perceiving the world that has its own value and its own beauty. New Year's will continue to arrive every year, and society will continue to demand its quota of hope and optimism. But our response to this demand doesn't need to be either submission or rebellion. It can simply be honesty, the courageous choice to remain true to our interior experience even when this fidelity puts us at odds with the expectations around us. This honesty is not just an act of personal integrity, it's a gift we offer to the world, a reminder that human experience is more complex and varied than our collective rituals sometimes suggest. Kafka taught us that we can live with dignity even in absurd situations, that we can maintain our humanity even when confronted with systems that seem designed to destroy it. Applied to our experience with seasonal expectations of optimism, this lesson becomes an invitation to inhabit our own experience with courage and authenticity, regardless of how out of place this makes us feel in moments of collective celebration. Because in the end, the hope that truly matters is not the one we manage to manufacture for special occasions, but the one we discover in the depths of our own truth, even when this truth is more complex and less colorful than the world around us would like it to be.